Hey guys, welcome back to some more AFK Arena. Today we're back over on the YouTube account and we're going to be breaking down some teams for the Abyssal Expedition. Now, if you're unfamiliar or if this is the first time that you've been in the Abyssal Expedition, you actually have two variants of enrollments. The casual is for very casual players. Unfortunately, a lot of times that we see casual, there are a lot of players that are AFK within the game mode. That is the reason why if you want to be competitive or if you actually want to play, I always go honorable. Now, of course, there is a little bit different between both of those in the rewards, but honestly, going honorable, if you're going to play, you can pretty much push through it, even with just a couple players. If you have AFK players in there, it will still work incredibly well. Now, when we look at the boss trials, this is where you're going to test out some of the comps in here because there are going to be wild variations when it comes to the boss comps. And we're going to have to actually see what it looks like when we hit the boss within the actual game. What kind of relics are we going to be using? What kind of trees are we going to be using? And that, of course, is going to be super dependent on what you do have. Now, one thing to note is with these formations, like I said, there are, and I want to show you the old formations that we used for the last season, also show you some of the public formations that we've seen for this season. And again, this is going to be hugely different. So hopefully between all of these, you can kind of mix and match. And one also thing to note is when it comes to this version of the Abyssal Expedition, if you're going to be competitive, it's going to be kind of a race, meaning that you're not going to be able to build up all of your trees in their entirety. You're not going to be sitting on 3, 4, or even 5 trees that are going to be built. Most of the time, you're going to have your relics, and you're going to probably have 2 built when you start getting to the competitive nature. So let's just run through these teams, guys. So looking at AE Team 1, this, of course, is Envy. Now, there are a couple variations. I actually have 2 different teams that we ran Envy with. And overall, we have Envy in here, and then we have Entendre. It is running Laios. We have Shuna, and then we do have the twins in here. Now, for the collections itself, it varies greatly. So last time when I used the twins, this actually worked incredibly well using Rowan's collection. And then, of course, using the collection in here, that is Tassie's collection that actually cheats death. And then in here, we did go ahead and we used Saurus's collection. And again, it worked incredibly well within the formations, just kind of building it out as you see right here. Now, Envy's collection is Thane's collection, which works incredibly well. And then Laios was actually running Zora's collection. And in here, we are using the Pelican. So it is the beast of the choice for this team, specifically the Pearl Crest Ibis, just for the fact that Envy is going to be doing the damage on this team, making it really important that, of course, he survives. Now, one thing to note is if you're going through those boss trials, if you're testing out this formation and the twins are dying out too early, you're going to kind of, and you are kind of overheating. You need to get to the point where the twins are not dying as early. And a lot of players that were going through here were resetting the support tree, which again, I think is kind of crazy, kind of goofy like we see with the Orthos combo, but they're resetting some of the tree specs to have 0 support to be able to essentially not overburn the boss or get the enrage timer or the enrage climbing so fast that you're just burning out the comp before you get the minute 30. So again, these are formations, and all of these formations you're going to have to play around with to see exactly how it's going to work. Now, Team 2, this is one that is around the original version of Baden. And of course, we have seen Baden with Trishia ran for a lot of really a significant amount of time. And then, of course, back here, we do have the Moth. Now, the Moth, we usually go on Liberta. Now, you can build it again, kind of with the dynamic of resetting that support tree, getting to the point where Baden actually gets the Moth. And damage in this one, super, super high. But again, it has a pretty high RNG aspect in here. Even looking at the build that we have in here, let me delete number 2. But looking in here, again, Trishia, most players are running her with the captive wings just for the fact of survivability. If she's dying out too fast, the captive wings are going to help with that. In here, we were doing the exact same, running the Shadow Dancer. Now, Desira was one where some players were running a collection with Desira, and unfortunately, it wasn't working very well. Then when they switched to no collection at all, it really worked incredibly well. That's why the save that we had in here did not have Desira's collection, because again, you have to test it. You have to see exactly what you get. And then when you actually go into the game mode, what does it look like for them overall? Now, team number 3, this one was interesting because we had the Awakened version of Entendre in Naruko. Now, you can see we do have the cheat death in there with Demia. And then Lysander was one that would buff up. And of course, this was using our little beast right here, which is Aurelius. So the little dragon was doing incredibly well. And there were a couple variations of removing or not using the awakened version of Entendre. We've seen a couple in there that were using Scion. Again, we've seen some variations with the awakened version of Eram. But overall, this one did incredibly well. Now, in here, we are running the Time Watch like we normally do within here. Now, of course, Damia was running and does run Mahira's collection for the simple fact that we want to keep them alive. And then the gear in here, we were running that Shadow Blade just like we've normally seen, working incredibly well in the collections. And again, these are ones that you have to test out. Team number 4, this was around the Awakened version of Shamira. And actually, Entendre was in here. I believe this is the combination that we ran with Entendre. And here, I believe I did have Iran in here. It was Iran or Scion that was in here actually thinking about it. When we had the damage, when we are kind of testing out the damage, because I don't think Marseille we had at that point either. But team 4, if we have Entendre in this one, we have Shamira, we have Athalia, and we have Entendre, and then we have our 2 big buffers in here. Not only running the Owl, but we also do have Jerome in here. Now, of course, Jerome is one with Palmer that we kind of worked out of the Belinda formation. We were using the Awakened version of Belinda in there. And again, looking at here, pretty set with the relics or with the collections in here. You can see we have a couple sources. And then, of course, one rating here with Tassie collection, trying to keep the team alive itself. Now, AE Team 5, this was around Randy. Now, this is one, again, the big thing in here is Randy will get his snakes up, which will do damage. We also have the original version, or excuse me, the Awakened version of Solus back here to keep all the snakes alive. And then we have Villanelle in here. This was a very interesting formation as well. Again, kind of running it in here. If you have survivability issues, Cassie's will work. If not, you can go ahead and run something like this in there, running the collections to actually boost it up. Now back here, we did again run Tassie's collection. We did not want this hero to die. And then of course, we have all of our support. So it's going to be interesting again. If you're resetting, if you're getting those changes, you have to see if you can run the battle for an extended amount of time. What does the damage look like? If heroes are dying out too early, swapping out some collections in there to actually make some of these formations work. Then we get into the ones that we're seeing. Now, again, these are public formations that were shared. Looking in here because this is a competitive nature. Little bit of a change up in here. So we do have Envy in here. We have Nox. We do have Shuna, Aurelia, and then we do have Silas. Now, one thing to note, and again, Silas is an older hero, is one, he provides an attack rating buff, which is awesome to see. But 2, he provides an immunity to Envy. Now, you'll see in a lot of formations that he will actually provide the buff or provide the immunity rate here to Shuna. If that happens, you have to adjust. You have to change up the formation. It has to go on Envy to keep him alive. If not, he does have a tendency to die out a little bit earlier. We have the Treat Spectator in here. And looking at the collections, again, we are running a bunch of Romans collections. Now, Aurelia does have the Thunderstorm down here. And then we're running Envy with Thane's collection. Again, you have to test it. You have to see exactly the breakpoints and see if he is dying out too early or if it goes on Shuna or if it goes on Nox or another player. And again, this is going to be dependent on the builds, where you have the heroes, how well you're built. Do you have a plus 30, a plus 40, furniture, engraving? What does it look like within those formations? So second formation, we look at Marseille. Now this one, interesting because we have Marseille and then we do have Telmar in here. We also have Lio. So changed up a little bit in the formation. Trickery Chest is being run in here and we have Liberta and then we have Velfira. So this one, I am actually having a lot of testing and I'm having a lot of issues with it. I'm not sure if it's because Telmar wasn't built up high enough or of course because of the linking that we're seeing there with Liberta overall, but you can see we do have the cheat death rate there for Marseille, making sure that she does stay alive. Major buffer in there with Rowan's collection, and then we have Zulraz collection, and then we are running double rate here, again, depending on the survivability that we have with Tassie's collection, really to make this formation work in its entirety. Then we get into the Belinda collection. Now, the thing to note is, again, when we are talking about going through the Abyssal Expedition at a much faster rate, that means you're going to be building probably 2 or 3 of those relic trees or the specifications, which means you have to kind of streamline some of the heroes in here, maybe not having anyone outside of probably 2 different specifications. Even looking at here, we have support, mage. So even if we're running mage or even if we're just running that support tree, we can go ahead and use the item that will maximize Belinda's support tree or really the mage tree in there through the Abyssal Expedition as you're continuing. Now, within here, again, we're running a couple of Tassie's collections, a couple of Roman's collections. Now, Belinda, I went back and forth with actually running Zafriel's collection or running Oden's collection. I'm trying to figure out which one worked the best. Now, we do have the Panda Dumpty in here as well. Again, very, very strong combination, but has a tendency to burn out really quick. And again, you can even move some of the heroes where we've had Belinda up front with Rosaline. It has worked very well within the formation. Again, it's very fickle with a lot. Now, the big thing with Desira is her ultimate ability, again, provides immunity, kind of what Silas does, making her imperative to some of these formations. Just the survivability once the enrage timer really starts cooking, because again, you will overheat. Now, team number 4 is Skarath. So this is running the SP effect for Skarath in here. And you can see we do have Lan in here as well. This is going to make a big difference on who you have built. Demia to keep them alive. Then we do have Trishia. So the Baden formation kind of broken up in here. And then we do have the awakened version of Shamira. Now, of course, in here, it is survivability at its finest. If you don't have the awakened version of Skarath, again, you can look at some other formations in here or some other damage dealers. But overall, this formation has proven to do incredibly well. Damage-wise, we're seeing about 60, I think around 60 billion damage out of the formation itself. And I know I have to build them up a little bit higher. We still have a very, very limited window. And then the Pearl Crest Ibis is in here as well. Then the last formation. So this was a very interesting one because it is running Lysander with Lucilla. And then you'll notice that we do have the awakened version of Lucius, and we have Randy in here with the owl. Note there is no person, or there's no player, no hero into slot number 4. This is kind of by design again, so you don't really overheat the boss. It's interesting combination, but actually when I tried out this combination within the formations itself, well, let me show the collections we have in here. So we do have, again, we have a Thane's collection in here. We have double right there with Rowan's. And then we do have, and I really need to swap this out because this is a defensive collection. I need a lot more defense, and I have some better defensive collections in here. So make sure when you're going through here, we have some HP collections. My collections in here are looking pretty horrible. There's a ton of HP right there. But I'm going to have to build some better collections, especially for him, because he is super dependent on the ability to actually have defense, which is going to translate to attack. Now, going into the boss trials, like I said earlier, you want to grab a formation, and I did look through a couple of those, been testing a couple of those, as you can see right here. I'm going through a lot of iterations, but I want to show you kind of how this works, and it was kind of weird to see because they all are together. So this entire team, including Randy, will stack right here in the middle. You can see we have all of these up, all of Rowan's collections right here. And then we do have Lucius, which is right in the middle. They're all getting the aura, and really the aura from everything in here. So they're kind of stuck right here in the middle. And you can see right here, the enrage, the stronger they get. And you'll notice this enrage timer just is crazy cooking, and how fast you can do damage in some of these formations. Like I had said earlier, when it comes to these heroes, if they're dying out really fast, some of the times it is by design, because even right there is 42 billion damage. Sometimes it is issues with the ability or with the layout itself. You could actually change up some of these to have a little bit more survivability if someone's dying out too quick. And collections, again, are going to have a really big impact. Now, you notice I actually don't have either of those either. Trial settings, we can set both of these on. This is going to make a huge difference if you go through and if you actually finish out these trials. When you're building it, again, it's going to be a really big race going through this Abyssal Expedition. So it's going to be super interesting to see exactly what it looks like. But when we start cranking out the damage with some of these teams, guys, it's pretty crazy to think. Even here, boom, let's see where we're at. And again, it's lagging a little bit right here because there's so much going on. But there is 62 billion. That is a very high performing formation, especially with only having 2 heroes. And look at it, guys. 4 billion with Lucius. Look at this, 37 billion, 21 billion with Lysander. That is the reason why we build this one, and it's very interesting how it works. We've tried putting a couple other heroes in here to even burn up or have the damage going even higher. It doesn't work. It actually burns it out a lot faster, and you die a lot faster. So I'm hoping that some of the formations helped. Some of the formations, and I know it's different on this account for the simple fact that we have all of the heroes in AFK Arena, and a majority of them we have built. We're going to have to see exactly what it looks like when it comes to the live version. But guys, that's going to do it for today's video. Let me know in the comments what you guys think. And as always, thank you guys for watching.